Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/achieveradio.
What a beautiful day to be alive. My debt is paid and more money arrives. The fridge is full and there's plenty of ice for a fireside chat with anyone I like. What a beautiful day, good to be here when almost everyone has disappeared. When almost everyone is waiting in line, it's good to meet you in this world of mine.
Welcome, everybody. We are live with Dr. Carolyn Dean here at AchieveRadio.com. Welcome for another week of fantastic information provided by our very own Dr. Carolyn Dean. And not only is it a beautiful day, but we are getting ready to talk to a most beautiful and excellent human being, people. She's such a delight in every way. She is a medical doctor and a naturopath. It's true. But don't let that sully you. No, I'm just kidding. I tell you what, she's the right kind of medical doctor, and she's absolutely the right kind of naturopath with nature at the forefront of her ideas and her structure and her concepts about how things should be done, and not naturopaths who borrowed the allopathic model and just pumping people full of supplements in their kind of standard drug pusher allopathic way. No, she's unique in her approach, and I am more convinced every day of her uniqueness as I talk to more and more people through our customer service and through our outreach about how they have been instructed to view their bodies as little individual moving parts, and all mechanically kind of put together in a Newtonian kind of concept, not as a whole, perfect, complete being, a being of wholeness and perfection already created in its natural state to interact beautifully in this biosphere that we inhabit called Earth, and everything having been provided for the body, for the mind, and for the spirit here so that we can thrive and be high functioning. And that's Carolyn's vision. That's who she is as a person who thrives and is high functioning. That's what she provides. And her passion to bring this to the public in such a way that she makes it easy and affordable to access this information. She gives it all away, for crying out loud, and to develop these products in such a way that you can use them for your own unique pursuit of health, vitality, and well-being is just extraordinary. We're so happy to have her here with us again today. I think we've been doing this show 7 or 8 years now, and I'm constantly impressed with how many of our listeners come back for more, never getting tired or weary of the things that she says. She is a breath of fresh air. We are absolutely delighted to have her with us. Again, welcome everybody to the show, Dr. Carolyn Dean.
Oh, yay. Thank you, Jenny. I appreciate your introduction. I appreciate the show and just the incredibleness of the internet and telephones and everything that allows us to spread our message. I mean, the type of work that we're doing, which is really play, just could not be imagined 20 years ago, 20, 30 years ago when I was in private practice. It was definitely just one person at a time. You couldn't really affect many more. I mean, maybe you would affect one person and they'd tell their families. And then in Canada, when I was in practice, I was encouraged to go on the media and spread the word. And, of course, that got me in big trouble with my licensing body, who admonished me and then investigated me for saying bad things about sugar on national TV. And, of course, the media, the Deanie Petty show that had me on, they were all too happy to have my content free, of course. And then when the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario came after me for saying bad things about sugar, could I reach anyone at the Deanie Petty show to inform them that their message was being turned against me? And, of course, no, the media is not there to support anything to do with natural medicine. When I was in New York and started writing books and get on TV down there as well. I did The View for maybe a dozen times, and when direct-to-consumer drug advertising was allowed to be on television, they no longer wanted me on. They didn't want on any dissidence, any critique of drugs on these shows. And I'm sure it was in their contract. You know, you can't have somebody on talking about natural choices in healthcare. So our whole demeanor about drugs and medicine and health and supplements is totally informed by the fact that the commercial media needs drug money for their advertising budget to keep them going. So we've been manipulated all along, you know, from day one. I have a blog in the works about sugar and how I suppose I should feel vindicated that now they're proving a study about sugar that was done 50 years ago and was buried by the sugar industry. And that study now shows that indeed sugar is one of the causes of heart disease. And I speculate, I mean, what would have happened if medicine had actually been scientific, had listened to the science, and had done the right thing according to the Hippocratic Oath and limited the amount of sugar that we throw around. So it's interesting how it always falls back on the individual. You really have to be aware of what's happening out there. Be aware that your doctor is not going to tell you anything about natural medicine. First of all, they never learned it in medical school, and if they happen to learn it on their own because of their own health and trying to get themselves feeling better, they're not allowed to say anything because then that will affect their status in their job and they could lose their job. So yeah, we're on our own, but I'm glad you're here because we have your forehead. You know, we will insert information into your brain that will help you understand what we're up to and what we're up against. And Ginny's blog today is about a very important couple of conditions. It's just so extremely important that actually what I will say, because it's about diabetes and kidney disease, what I'll say is that I'll offer the, I think, 8 or 10-page excerpt from the Magnesium Miracle about kidney disease to people if they email into support@rnareset.com. Because what's happened with kidney disease is the one thing doctors seem to know about magnesium is that you shouldn't take it if you have kidney disease. And I do my best to prove that that's a myth and that has been holding people back for decades. What I do know, and it's actually been coming up recently as I've been investigating intermittent fasting and water fasting and the ketogenic diet, the information that I've been most impressed with is by a Canadian doctor named Jason Fung, F-U-N-G, and he has his own website, his own clinic. He also presents himself on dietdoctor.com, and I've learned a lot from him. It updated my knowledge about ketones, ketoacidosis. In medical school, we learned about ketoacidosis, which is dangerous, but what we're talking about with the keto diet is just making your body metabolize ketones instead of glucose, so it's a low-carb diet. Now, why I'm bringing this up is Dr. Fung is a nephrologist. He's a kidney specialist, And he said he worked for 10 years trying to help people with their kidney disease. He has a lot of diabetic patients because most of the kidney disease, I think 90% of the kidney disease comes from people who have diabetes. When he looked at diabetes, most of the diabetics are overweight. Not all of them, but the type 2 diabetics are mostly overweight. So he's like a researcher. He's got a lot of common sense, and he's a clinician. So he finally decided that in order to prevent kidney disease and to treat and prevent diabetes, he needed to work on the obesity factor. And he wrote a book called The Obesity Code, which explains the research. And he basically found that the ketogenic diet works best because it keeps the level of carbohydrates in your diet down to a low enough amount, between 20 and 50 grams, so that your body is more metabolizing ketones, and it keeps your insulin level down. The whole purpose of treating diabetes is to keep your insulin levels low enough that they're not constantly flipping around and peaking, trying to deal with all the sugars and carbohydrates you're eating. So I'm interested in talking with Jason Fung because we know that the magnesium we're using has been helpful to people with kidney disease and with diabetes. And what Ginny's blog at drcarolyndeanlive.com says today is that globally, as of 2015, the International Diabetes Federation reported an estimated 415 million adults are living with diabetes, more than the population of the United States. The incidence is increasing rapidly, and by 2030, this number will likely double. Many people live with type 2 diabetes for a long period of time without being aware of their condition. By the time they figure it out, the complications may already be present. One of the signs of diabetes is low magnesium. It's in all the medical texts, but because we never learned about the importance of minerals in medical school, doctors do not routinely test for magnesium. And if they do, they use the wrong test. They use the serum magnesium test, which is highly inaccurate. But luckily, you can order your own Magnesium RBC test without a doctor's prescription online at requestatest.com. It's only $49, but you want to have an optimum magnesium level of 6.0 to 6.5. Diabetes damages the kidneys and is the leading cause of kidney disease, as I said. However, when the kidneys are impaired, doctors tell their patients not to take magnesium, which is what they actually need to heal their kidneys. Now, they do that because if someone's on dialysis, if they have really end-stage kidney disease, then they can't clear extra magnesium out of the blood, and then they can develop high blood levels of magnesium. But that's only in people on dialysis. But also, I'll, kind of do a bit of a précis of the 8 pages I'm sending you, because people on dialysis, if they get the right magnesium, which is the picoionic remag, they actually pull the magnesium into their cells. They don't leave it wandering around in the bloodstream to build up. So then I talk about, in the original book, that's part of the 8 pages, I didn't even have a specific section on kidney disease. That was mostly because the association of magnesium with kidney disease has for many decades been to just avoid it. Over the years, the medical and scientific communities have started to acknowledge that the kidneys need magnesium, just like any other organ, and the attack on magnesium has little scientific merit. Magnesium is a biological necessity, and the blanket avoidance of it in kidney disease has led to untold suffering. The NIH acknowledges a growing burden of kidney disease. Statistics show a sharp increase in kidney disease affecting 1 in 10 American adults. But how are doctors diagnosing kidney disease? Perhaps they are setting the criteria for kidney filtration rates at a lower level, much like they're doing with blood pressure and cholesterol. By having broader criteria, more people find themselves being diagnosed with prediabetes, prehypertension, and now pre-kidney disease, and are terrified because they're being told they're developing chronic diseases for which there are no cure. Catching more people in the net of pre-kidney disease means these patients will be offered medications for assorted conditions like heart disease, blood pressure, diabetes that seem to go hand in hand with kidney disease. Kind of like in an effort to prevent people from developing these side effects of kidney disease, they put them on all these preventive drugs, which unfortunately just makes things worse because it drains your body of magnesium. Also, there's the rampant use of prescription medications. For example, 2016 study gives evidence that the protein pump inhibitor heartburn drugs cause kidney injury. The authors echo my sentiments that any drug should only be used when necessary, not as a preventive measure. So you can read this blog at drcarolyndeanlive.com. You can write to support at rnareset.com to get this excerpt about kidney disease. And what I go over is a little bit of what we just said, and then a list of the top 10 drugs that affect the kidneys, and this business of end-stage renal disease. It's a Medicare-funded program. It has increased from 10,000 patients in 1973 to a frightening 615,000. It's probably more like 700,000 now, because that was in 2012. 10,000 up to 700,000. I mean, what is going on? And I go along, and here's where I got into the magnesium benefits of kidney disease. I say in the book, one anecdote that opened my eyes to the importance of magnesium in kidney disease was a story told me by a well-known magnesium researcher. Many years ago, he asked a colleague, a kidney disease specialist, to test his kidney patients for magnesium levels. It was agreed that both ionized magnesium and serum magnesium would be tested and compared in dialysis patients. Now, this is the paper's reference, 1999, Doctors Markel, the nephrologist, and Dr. Bert Altora. And Dr. Altora and his wife do the foreword to my Magnesium Miracle book. The levels were that people with chronic kidney disease of all varieties had both the highest levels of serum magnesium and the lowest levels of ionized magnesium. Their magnesium was stuck in the bloodstream and not getting into their cells. It's not reported in the study, but when these patients, this is what Dr. Altor told me personally, when these patients took a liquid magnesium, their ionized magnesium levels improved and their serum magnesium levels became normal. Their symptoms were alleviated and their kidney function tests improved. This anecdote explains for me why doctors fear magnesium. They just measure serum magnesium and see that the levels are elevated and assume the worst. However, they don't test for and therefore don't notice that ionic magnesium is low, showing that the cells are starved for magnesium. Unfortunately, the definitive test for magnesium, ionized magnesium, is a research tool and not available to the public. Now, what I didn't write in the book, I mean, I didn't want to, betray confidence, but Dr. Altor told me I said, well, what did the kidney doctor do? Is he going to give magnesium? Is he going to, write about this? Is he going to shout it from the rooftops? And he said no. He said he'd have to be very low-key about it, or his colleagues would crucify him. And then the following part of the excerpt is a story from a PhD in health sciences who suffers from end-stage renal disease, and she's on home hemodialysis. And, her story is really quite riveting. And what she discussed is that before her dialysis and after her dialysis, she has done blood testing and proved that dialysis is pulling magnesium out of her blood and depleting it. And she says that before REMAG, she would have heart palpitations. Most dialysis patients have leg cramping during the treatment, and they develop a lot of heart issues. She's also said she's gotten osteoporosis, broken bones in her feet 3 times, increased calcifications in her arteries, she has palpitations, brain fog, teeth changes, and she said who knows what else. So with the REMAG, she eliminated her palpitations, and her phosphorus levels began to normalize. Phosphorus is a mineral that is increased because people don't have enough magnesium. So it's a great overview. I end the excerpt with the vascular calcification in kidney disease, where I talk about kidney disease as being a result of calcification and not something that sort of attacks people out of the blue, but the vascular calcification that we see in the carotids or in the coronary arteries, it's happening in the kidneys as well, which is yet another indication of magnesium deficiency in these poor folks. So, Ginny, you opened a floodgate with that blog today. I never know what Ginny's going to bring forth, but it was an excellent blog, very timely, and just a couple of email questions that we got arising from that before we move on. Someone says, when you talk about diabetes on tonight's radio show, could you also include type 1 diabetes? I've lived with type 1 for 25 years and have no complications from it. Yay. I find it interesting that not only is type 2 increasing rapidly in this country and around the world, but there's also a huge increase in the number of people diagnosed with type 1. Granted, many of them are children, but not all are children. I was 35 when I was diagnosed, and I've met many who were around that age when they were diagnosed. I'm no longer buying the belief that type 1 is genetic and so cannot be reversed. I know someone who reversed his type 1 after 47 years by switching to a raw food diet. He was diagnosed when he was 13 months old. I notice when I drink REMAG, Remite, that my blood sugar levels are much better and I require slightly less insulin. That's also the case when I take sodium, either the sea salts or baking soda or another similar salt supplement. When I've had my magnesium and sodium levels tested, they're both too low. Magnesium RBC around 5, sodium usually around 132. I can bring them up if I'm consistent with the supplement, so yes, I need to be consistent. So, I mean, that this person kind of answered her own question. The minerals are going to help. They can lessen your insulin levels. I think there's more that we've heard people offer when they're reducing their insulin levels with type 1 diabetes. They will use the RNA drops, they will use restructure, and they'll look at their calcium intake to see if they need calcium, and they'll be taking therapeutic levels of these minerals. I don't know if I can say much more than that. I will mention that Dr. Fung deals with type 1 and type 2 diabetes, and if a type 1 diabetic is overweight, they can benefit by the ketogenic diet. So that's something to look into as well. Another question about hemodialysis. Can Dr. Dean's liquid magnesium and minerals, maybe used along with the magnesium lotion, reverse the need for dialysis? And she has a friend who's a double amputee who's on dialysis 3 times a week. Now, this person, we already sent her the excerpt because she's saying she feels like the dialysis is killing her. Well, that can be because of ongoing magnesium deficiency. So even just doing the REMAG to treat the symptoms of magnesium deficiency in dialysis is going to be helpful. But we could never say that a person can get off their dialysis. We have no way of knowing that. I mean, some people, if you recall what I said above about the person going on a raw food diet, I mean, I'm not going to recommend that at all, but sometimes when people go very strictly on a protocol, if someone went very strictly on the completement formulas, they would reap the benefits. And, it's up to the individual to stay consistent and keep with the program. The next kidney question is, I have a question about the thyroid function and kidney function as they relate to adequate minerals. I've experienced hyponatremia, which is low sodium, on many occasions. Not for several years now as I take REMAG, and I also make sure I have enough salt. My TSH level is currently rising. The last few years shows a rise from 1 to 2.5 to 3.5, and now at 4.7. But my free T4 and T3 and other levels are better than they'd been before. There are no thyroid antibodies or autoimmune disease showing up. My C-reactive protein for inflammation is low. Regarding the topic of diabetes and kidney disease and magnesium levels, my hemoglobin A1C is 5.6, so that's starting to climb a bit, which I'm working on reducing with lifestyle changes and editing what and when I eat. So, yeah, intermittent fasting can help with the blood glucose, the whole business of regulating your insulin. Now, this is a great question. It brings up what could be happening with thyroid as people begin to take the REMAG and REMITE. As this person's, now I don't know if she said she was on, yeah, here we go. She continues postmenopausal age 69, wonder if I should take desiccated thyroid or nature thyroid. I used to take 60 micrograms of Armor, but stopped a few years ago and concentrated on the minerals in hopes they would be the best approach. Should I just keep on with the REMAG, REMITE, and Recalcia, increasing my levels, or consider adding desiccated for a while? I heard what you recently said about too much iodine. I've not added more iodine than in your REMITE, but I do understand the iodine levels do matter in T4, T3. So let's look at the thyroid quickly. With these rising numbers, the rising numbers, TSH is thyroid-stimulating hormone, where this hormone from the pituitary is pushing the thyroid to work harder. And yes, the thyroid is responding because her free T4 and free T3 are rising. She says they're more mid-range. They're no longer as low. So the TSH is, quote, working, but the building blocks for the thyroid hormone are in the REMITE. So this is where a person could be taking 2 teaspoons of REMITE a day to get that more in order. Or should the person be looking at yeast overgrowth because yeast toxins will block the thyroid? Or should they be taking fluoride out of their diet, out of their water, looking at things that have water in them where the water could be fluoridated because fluorides block the thyroid? Or gluten, which can affect the thyroid. In my thyroid book, I try to hit the triggers for hypothyroidism. So just looking at all those ways that the thyroid can be affected, trying to work on avoiding the triggers so that you don't need to take outside thyroid hormone, which can sort of suppress what you've been doing all along. So regarding the topic of diabetes and kidney disease, her hemoglobin A1C is elevating. So for that, like I said, maybe ketogenic diet, looking at keeping the insulin levels down so that, see what happens when you're eating carbs, even good carbs, root vegetables, on a very regular basis. You eat that food, the blood sugar goes up, insulin comes out, and some of the blood sugar will go into cells for energy, but a lot of it will go into storage, either glycogen storage or it'll go into fat storage. But the amount of time that kind of extra glucose is flooding the bloodstream will activate the hemoglobin A1C and give you the indication that you have too much blood sugar. So the whole process of restricting carbohydrates on the ketogenic diet is to keep the body from having excess glucose surging, and even an excess surging of utilizing your glycogen in your liver when your blood sugar goes down. That glycogen will come out and peak and cause insulin to come out and all the rest of it. So the whole object of the ketogenic diet, if a person is trying to get their weight under control or their blood sugar under control, is to reduce the carbohydrates so that you're burning ketones. So yes, you can. I've been talking about this ketogenic diet a lot recently, but I do find it fascinating. Question: what's the amount of elemental magnesium? Okay, what's this person saying? The magnesium deficiency correlation. Hi, I was wondering, is magnesium orotate 500 milligrams safe in pregnancy? I'm saving to get the Remag products and wanted to burn these while I'm waiting. Well, I mean, this is where we try to tell people about the absorption factor. All other magnesiums are only 4 to 20% absorbed, so a 20% absorption of an Orotate compared to 100% absorption of Remag means that Remag is going to be 5 times more effective, beneficial, whatever, however you want to place that correlation. But what you have to do is look at the amount of elemental magnesium in the magnesium Orotate. When they just say, and I looked up some of the products about magnesium Orotate, and that's what they call it, a magnesium Orotate. They don't call it an elemental magnesium. So in my Magnesium Miracle book, I have a list of the various magnesiums, and the Orotate, if you take a 500 milligrams of magnesium Orotate, now hold on to your hats here, it's only 30 milligrams of magnesium. So the other, 470 milligrams is the Orotate factor. So if you're taking 500 milligrams of magnesium Orotate twice a day, you're getting 60 milligrams of magnesium. And 420 is the RDA. And in pregnancy, I'm definitely recommending 600 milligrams. So you're not really saving anything by, buying a maybe less expensive bottle of magnesium Orotate. So I think that's me for this opening diatribe. Ginny, I'll go over to you and see if we've got anything on chat or phones.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Yes, oh goodness, yes. Okay, so first of all, I'm so glad you went into all that detail because we do have a lot of people who contact us, during the week. And so this will be a great kind of go-to recording that people can have in their archives, and also listeners to now and to the archives going forward. Be sure to share this with other people that that may be, either struggling with any of these factors, because we know that if there's 60% of Americans right now are obese, that means that 6 out of 10 people could listen to what Dr. Dean just said and benefit tremendously. And at this point in the game, I think we all have to start looking out for each other, because it's clear that nobody is looking out for us. Everybody's up to their old tricks of just following the dollar. So let's share this with as many people as we can. Now, if you'd like to talk to Dr. Dean tonight, 602-666-6027 is the phone number that you can call. Again, that's 602-666-6027. And then when you call into the station, if you want to speak with her versus just listening into the show, you've got to hit *5 on your keypad. *5 will raise your hand in the studio and let us know that you have a question or a comment, and then we will put you on the phone with her, and you can chitty-chat to your heart's desire. And it doesn't have to be about tonight's topic. You can talk to her about whatever it is that is important to you. Of course, we open up the phones, and we'll take phone calls up until about 10 minutes before the hour at the close of the next hour. So you've got plenty of time to chat. Now, the other thing I want to say is that you can use our public chat line to ask questions, or you can inquick us, which is kind of like texting through the radio, and we will ask those questions of Dr. Dean too. So let me pose a couple questions to Dr. Dean that have come in, and then we'll go to our phones and see who's clicking around and raising their hands, and we'll start taking some phone calls. Okay, so Carolyn, one of the first questions that came in, Sue in Colorado Springs. I'm going to have a hysterectomy in 6 days. The hospital wants all supplements stopped today. I really don't want to stop my Remag that soon. Are you aware of any contraindications of continuing it? I take 2 milliliters 3 to 4 times a day. That can't be right. Milligrams. That can't be right. I'm not sure what the dose is, but what do you think about stopping supplements before surgeries, Carolyn?
I think we should send Sue the Preparing for Surgery excerpt from Future Health Now Encyclopedia. Okay?
Absolutely. Yep. Sue, you can email us. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, let me continue. It used to be years ago when people started using a lot of this and that vitamins, the doctors began to say, well, you can't take these potential blood thinners. Like it began to be a real long list. Ginseng was in there, and ginger, a lot of the G words, vitamin E. And finally, I think they got fed up and just said, don't take anything. Now, this is crazy, because then there are other doctors, there are surgeons who will put up intravenous magnesium because it's so beneficial in surgery. And what I think is happening in a lot of surgeries is the anesthetics, they use fluoride anesthetics, and they make people magnesium deficient. And there is a high incidence of people developing their heart palpitations or even AFib after surgery, because that's what your magnesium is depleted. Boom, it goes down, your electrolytes are off, and your heart starts palpitating. When I had my ear surgery last August, I refused a general anesthetic and just took a local so they could drill away the calcium in my ear. Oh, my gosh. But me being so magnesium dependent, I was afraid that I might start getting palpitations under a general anesthetic and then wake up on, flecainate or something. So it's, to me, I would be taking as much magnesium as I could up to the surgery, and make sure I have it in my water bottle for when I wake up. Make sure I have Remag lotion with me to put all over me after surgery. Magnesium is the most important post-surgical nutrient. So there's the thinking. You have to know, well, what's behind this? They're just lazy. They just say stop everything because they don't have a clue. But it started out to be, let's stop things that might cause blood thinning, and that's all in this preparation for surgery excerpt. And those of you who have Future Health Now Encyclopedia, that information is there, as well as most other questions people ask. I've got it in my modules, or the Health Encyclopedia, or my 700 different blogs that you can Google. But we don't mind answering questions here because there are a lot of new people. We keep preaching to a new crowd every week, right, Ginny?
Yeah, pretty much. We've got our regular listeners, of course, who love listening over and over, but we do have a lot of people who come in for the first time, and it's amazing how many people know so little about natural approaches to healing and vitality because they've been in the medical model. Something has happened where they either haven't recovered or they've been poisoned, and they get a hold of us. And so we have to really start that process of education all over. So we're grateful for all of our regular listeners who listen patiently as Dr. Dean answers. But that was a great question, Sue. A lot of people do ask that.
Yeah, and it is pretty interesting. Again, I delve back, many decades. When I was a kid, we did not run to the hospital. I mean, I guess because there wasn't even a hospital in my town. You'd have to go across the bridge to Halifax. So you just never got into that habit, whereas I see in so many of the customer service emails that I get to answer, people say, I ended up in ER last night, my heart was palpitating, or I felt dizzy. And it's because people just don't have their own natural first aid kit beside them. They don't stop to read, in my Future Health Now Encyclopedia, I think I have a section on dizziness or dehydration or, whatever's going on. People are so either inhibited by medicine or unsure of themselves. They don't know their body, and it's really getting us in trouble because when you go to the doctor, they're just looking for something really wrong, and they'll put the fear of whatever into you, and then you end up being at their mercy.
Yes, and mercy is absolutely the right way to say that. Okay, 602-666-6027. Callers who are interested in talking to Dr. Dean, be sure to hit *5 on your keypad to let us know that you have a question or comment. We'll put you on the phone. Now, another thing that we have is our good friend Sarah typing in, and also her questions were echoed by Fergie. Okay, so they're kind of asking the same thing. And what they're saying is, can I take the Remag all at once, or I need to sip it in water gradually throughout the day? That's one question. But the more important question is, I've been on the entire program for several weeks, and I have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep once I got started on it. Do you have any advice for me?
First of all, taking the Remag all at once is just a plain waste because there's only so much that your cells will take up. Only so much that can stuff itself into your cells, and the rest of it is just urinated out. It's gone. You've wasted it. And magnesium does energize a person, revs a person up, but it usually is that it energizes you during the day, and then at night you're kind of relaxed enough that you can sleep. But in the beginning, some people will say they don't like to take the Remag too close to bed, or they've been drinking too much water, and that sort of keeps them awake. So you would try to take your Remag during the early part of the day and take it away from the evening while your body kind of gets used to being woken up. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. And also there's the Remite, which is a true electrolyte, and that will get people charged up. And then you've got the B12s and the Realign, too, Carolyn. Do you want to talk about those?
Well, that's it happens with, quote, sensitive people whose bodies are, may react to other things, to foods or supplements. Often when we question people who give us this type of story, they'll say, whenever I take a new supplement, I kind of get revved up. Well, knowing that, it means you have to go real slow, and you build up slow. And the Remite, some people, even the RDA of iodine that we have in the Remite, they'll say it kind of charges them up. We're not really 100% sure what's going on there, but sometimes when we question those folks, they'll say, I used to take high-dose iodine. I think I really got myself sensitized to it. So there's that going on. And the bees, they can activate and wake you up. So you have to look at it as you've been numb and asleep, and now you're waking up, and it's a whole new situation that you have to get used to. But it's not bad. I mean, the worst is over. You don't want to be going through life numb and tired and asleep. You want to be awake. But then you do want to get some good sleep, so you take your products early until your body can handle them later.
Very good. Excellent. Yes, Belinda says that she also is on the Total Body Reset. She says the minerals have done amazing things for my thyroid, adrenals, energy, and sleep. Thank you, Dr. Dean. She says, but Remite will keep me awake if I take it at night. My daily dose of 2 teaspoons of Remite are consumed in the morning. So she's taking Remite in the morning and Remag at night. And I do the same thing. I take Remag at night when I'm going to go to sleep, and I take my Remite in the morning because it's like, for me, it's like drinking a cup of coffee. I think that stuff just wakes me up. I love it.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Belinda.
Okay, and then Susanna typed in and said that this is good information, Carolyn. My good friend started taking Remag and Remite on my recommendation. Her A1C score had been going up despite all her efforts with diet, exercise, and vitamins. She had just had her doctor tell her that in the next 6 months, she'd have to start diabetes treatment medicine if her A1C score went up again. 6 months later, her score went from 6.1 to 5.5. Her doctor said she had superb blood. She is singing the praises of Remag and Remite. Oh, that's very exciting.
Wow, thank you. Thanks, Susanna. That's great. So, we're getting people who, I don't know if it was Susanna, but certainly a lot of our friends and customers have said, look, I can't get my friends even interested in this. But you get a few stories like that you can share, then people will start waking up. It's wonderful.
Excellent. Okay, this question is for Rona, and also I'll say we've got some callers. And listen, if you're on the line and you want to talk to Dr. Dean, you've got to hit *5 on your keypad. And also, if you're typing in and you want to talk to Dr. Dean, you can absolutely call and talk with her. For example, Rona types in, Di, Dr. Dean, I'm following up with you since our last conversation back in September. What a treat that was. I am just wondering why I'm becoming hypersensitive again. I was able to come off my anti-hypersensitivity medication very quickly after starting Remag. I'm currently taking 2 teaspoons of Remag daily along with applying the Remag lotion. I'm taking all of your other products as well. So, Rona, you're welcome to call in and talk to Dr. Dean if you'd like to and follow up that conversation. But, Carolyn, what did you want to say?
I don't know what hypersensitivity medications would be. And in terms of someone going through a loop, they do well and then they don't do well, it is very often that they get giddy about how well they're doing, and they start adding foods or they start taking less of the products, or they just get too activated, and we see it all the time. And we see it in people with their chronic fatigue. They get their energy back, and then they overdo it, and then they burn out a little more. So it's you've really got to look at all the triggers and everything that you're taking and see what's shifted from being on a consistent protocol.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right about that, Carolyn, because, boy, when you start, one thing about feeling better is your appetite returns. Because when you're not feeling well, you don't have much of an appetite, and food's kind of like, and then you start to feel better, and you're like, oh, I'm hungry. That looks good. So you do have to watch that food creeping back in. And, people don't think that there's much, if I have this one little thing and this one little thing. But a couple of those one little things during the course of a day can, as you said earlier, throw off your blood sugar. I mean, different things can really get aggravated, and our food is just so messed up these days. Now, Rona, if you want to type in a response to that, or again, call 602-666-6027. And just pick up the phone, call and talk with Dr. Dean, get a little bit more detail to her, and then she can be more specific with you. Okay, so let's take a phone call, Carolyn, before we hit the top of the hour. We've got about 4.5 minutes left, and then we'll take some next hour. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay, let's go out to the great state of Iowa, area code 641. 641, you're on the line with Dr. Dean. If you could give us your name and then state your question or comment.
Hi, this is Anita calling in to check in with Dr. Dean.
Hi, Anita.
I just wanted to update you and get some advice. I bumped my Remag up to 3.5 teaspoons after we talked last time, and I had several really good days with my heart, probably 4 or 5 days without really any symptoms. But then I got started to get sick with the virus, and I started having more heart stuff breaking through. So I bumped up to 4 teaspoons like last Wednesday. And that's a little rough on my digestive system, but at the same time, I'm like even last night, not today, but last night and yesterday, I had a few breakthroughs of racing heart tachycardia stuff. So today I tried something different. I hadn't even listened to the show, but I tried taking just 2 teaspoons of the Remag in my first jar of water, and then I'm going to take the second to the rest of the day today. And my stomach has been much calmer, and my heart's been fine. I started the Remite about a week. It'll be 2 weeks on Wednesday, and I've worked up to like 3/4 a teaspoon. As of today, I started 3/4 a teaspoon. And that I take in the morning with my hot lemon juice water. So I'm just wondering, like, my stomach has been, my bowels and stuff have been really kind of irritated, but I'm still having heart things, so I'm thinking, do I need to, So I don't know if this splitting it between two jars, 2 quart jars of water is going to help, but so far today it's been better.
Right, and I looked up when you were on before, Anita, and what you've been going through, and you're trying to heal your body, and as you say, in the middle of it all, then you get another virus, and part of the thing with the way we're working with magnesium. And I know you had been taking high amounts of other magnesiums, but they're just they don't saturate your cells. So
right.
And that the calm had been giving you diarrhea, and you'd been on glycinate and taurate. So part of what I start people with is definitely that it's all about the magnesium. You have to saturate yourself with magnesium, and then we'll see what else there is. And maybe it's time to kind of look at the what else. By and you're probably already doing this.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I just wondered, does having a virus like that, I wondered if it was even sort of a purge or a cleansing, because it came on very slow, but then finally my body just, like, my nose just really ran and sneezed, and it was all clear. It was very viral, but it was really intense for like 24 hours, and then boom, it was like almost gone. So I didn't know if, and it was during that time of kind of getting sick where my heart was acting up more, and I wondered, do you use up more magnesium again then when you are fighting something, a virus? Or
definitely, yes. Yeah, definitely, okay. Because I think, when you get a virus and you have that oozy, out of it feeling, part of that is dehydration, part of it can be the minerals. So, yeah, you're going to burn a lot of magnesium. A lot of people will say when they have a virus, their heart speeds up. There is an electrolyte imbalance. But yeah, let's continue after the break. Okay, Anita?
Okay.
It's true. Why do we age physically? You just got to allow it. If you don't allow it, then it won't be in your experience. The only reason you age is because you embrace time, and time says when you get old, you get wrinkly, and the dermis of your skin lets you down, and your heart fails, and you lose your mind, and your feet can't work, and on and on and on and on and on, and all these rules and regulations where you're looking for reasons. But then you look at Jack Lalanne, and he's more spry now than he ever was. He didn't embrace it. He didn't stay how to stay. He didn't try to figure out how not to grow old. He remained in his state of youth.
How do you recommend answering the question, how old are you?
And the reply is be ageless, and when they ask you how old you are, say you don't know.
Psychic radio, holistic radio, spiritual radio. This is AchieveRadio.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/achieveradio.
What a beautiful day to be alive. My debt is paid and more money arrives. The fridge is full and there's plenty of ice for a fireside chat with anyone I like. What a beautiful day, good to be here. When almost everyone has disappeared, when almost everyone is waiting in line, it's good to meet you in this world of mine.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Hour 2 live with Dr. Carolyn Dean joining us tonight. Dr. Dean, of course, on the radio with Anita calling in from Iowa. Let's resume that call from the first hour, and then we'll take other callers and keep going. Welcome back, everybody.
Right. Thank you, Jenny. Yes, Anita, it's a great point you're bringing up, because a lot of people will have something happen, and it's just life. Something will come up, and they'll wonder what it has to do with the minerals, or if it has anything to do, and we never know. I mean, with the 24-hour viral-like reaction, it does sound like a detox, because most viruses these days go on for a lot longer.
Well, it was it was a long prodrome, or whatever you call it, before it started. And I had been I'd been out of my element, and eating out a couple times, which I don't normally do, and staying in a motel that had really dry heat. So I knew I could feel I was getting sick, but I didn't feel very sick with it all. And and it was during those, I thought those would be really stressful days for me, being away from home. And those are the days my heart was really good right before I started to get sick.
All right.
So, like, I had, like, no symptoms for, like, 3 or 4 days, and I was like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, and we call it the experiment. It's like you're feeling good, and then your body gets it put into a petri dish experiment of dry hotel and stress with traveling, etc. So, yeah, that is going to drain the magnesium, and I talk about that in a lot of my writing. So the question then comes back to, instead of putting all the 4 teaspoons in a quart of water and sipping that, you found that was maybe too intense. So just today you put 2 teaspoons in a quart, and you'll do that twice a day. But the other thing is, customer service has an FAQ about using psyllium seed to help soften the stools, but also bulk up the stools, and try not to let any extra magnesium get into the bowels, in a sense, because when you're trying to get a full 4 teaspoons, like I said, some of the extra can go out in your kidneys or go into your intestines. And then there's also, and being a health practitioner, I'm sure you're on a probiotic, and you're looking at yeast overgrowth. Is that true?
Yeah, mostly. I eat a very, very low sugar diet. I mean, I was sick on Thanksgiving, so we didn't even have much for, like, pies and desserts or anything. So I eat a very low sugar diet. And I have not been on a probiotic. I had some prescriptive cyst, and every time I took it before I had started this magnesium, every time I took it, I didn't like the way it made me feel. But I have another one in the fridge. I had started digestive enzymes to see if that would help, but there's no problem with looseness. That's not the problem. It's the opposite right now.
Okay.
And it's very changeable through a day. It can be very changeable. And, so it's been kind of almost like going a lot and often. And so I just wondered if that was...
a probiotic would be helpful to balance things out, because it's almost like you're talking about IBS, a little bit of IBS there, which I'm not trying to make that diagnosis. I'm just saying that as you're shifting with the minerals, the body can be dumping and detoxing. You could have yeast overgrowth, and the yeast is being dumped, and you're going to get symptoms. So I would really look at the probiotics and see about, if you can, eating some more garlic. Look at my Reset the Yeast Connection book and see if something jumps out at you that may be helpful.
Okay. Yeah, it was just like I didn't think I needed to increase more magnesium, but yet the heart, like I said, I was having more breakthrough the last couple of days. And I thought, I don't know how.
Right. And what I'm trying to say is, yes, whatever was the, quote, virus can stimulate the heart. If your yeast is being detoxified or treated with the minerals, if the immune system is kicking in to treat the yeast, then the yeast toxins can kick up your heart. We got to look outside of just the REMAG, and I'm glad you're doing the REMITE, because that will support the other minerals. But I just don't want people to think that you just keep increasing the REMAG if you have symptoms. If you have symptoms that jump up after starting to feel better, then and you're on a good therapeutic amount, which is 4 teaspoons, 3 to 4 teaspoons, then you have to look at other things. Okay?
Right, because something in me said, no, don't go up anymore, because that's not going to...
Right.
And and how long, do you know how long a person stays? I would want to stay at the 4.
Well, gosh, I was on 4 for maybe half a year. I'm not saying you have to be, but everybody is so different. Okay. I know when actually when I got up on my Remite, I was able to cut back to 3 because it seemed to me that I was using my Remag to almost treat the symptoms of other mineral deficiencies. And when I sorted that out with my Remite, I needed less Remag. So it'd be interesting to see if that happens with you.
Okay, well, I went up today, and so, it's been a little better. What should be my goal to work up with the Remite at this point?
Well, Remite, if I say 1.5 teaspoons, but if you're on 4 teaspoons of Remag, I would go up to 2 teaspoons of Remite, kind of to keep that balance. And then look at your calcium intake as well to see if you might need the recalcia if you're not getting enough calcium in your diet.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I get much at all calcium.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, so that's going to be important, too, for the balance. So, look at your diet, read the Remite Recalcia booklet. All these booklets are freely available at drcarolyndeanlive.com under books.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for calling in. Great questions, Anita. We'll talk to you again, okay?
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, excellent. Great caller. Thank you for your interaction. Let me do a couple things on the chat line, Carolyn, and then again, 602-666-6027 is the number to call if you have a question or comment for Dr. Dean. Be sure to hit *5 on your keypad. If you've raised your hand and I'm not calling on you, it's simply because I can't see you. You might want to tap into the chat line and let me know you're holding. Carolyn, I want to go back and say that I did not take my Wheaties today, did not meet my Wheaties. I misread Rona's email where she was saying, I thought she was saying hypersensitivity, but it was hypertensive medication. So hypertensive.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, not hypersensitive. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the wrong thing. Sorry, Rona. So again, going back to that, she was taking the Remag. She's taking 2 teaspoons of Remag and the Remag lotion, and now she's back to her antihypertensive medication.
Well, if it's just Remag you're taking, then you're kind of like what Anita and I were talking about. You can't just think of Remag as being your blood pressure drug. You have to look at your whole picture, the stress in your environment. Are you walking, exercising? What's your diet? So look at the whole picture. And then with the blood pressure, if it's only a total of 2 teaspoons of Remag a day, so I don't know how much Remag liquid and lotion you're taking, but some people, myself, Anita, etc., we had to take 4 teaspoons. But if you're taking 4 teaspoons of Remag, you got to look at your other minerals too, your Remite and your Recalcia. So what we'd say is that if your magnesium deficiency symptoms were causing you the hypertension, and that's all it is, then the Remag at 3.5 teaspoons should take care of it. If it doesn't, then you look at other deficiencies or other situations. And my world is mostly about minerals and yeast overgrowth. So that's my starting point. So hopefully that gives you enough information, Rona, to continue.
Very good. Excellent, excellent. Okay, and then the next question coming through to the chat line, Doug typed in, my wife and I have recently ordered Remag, Remite, realign, restructure, and the RNA drop. So that's pretty much the total body reset, Doug. Thank you. We started with Realign in the salt water for a week, and then my wife started with a half a teaspoon of Remag. I will start, and he says, I continued to finish a bottle of magnesium glycinate that they had on hand. I will start the Remag next week. However, my wife has been experiencing lots of anxiety for many years and was hoping that Remag would offer some relief, but it seems to have gotten worse. So she is now starting afresh with 1 drop in a liter of salt water to sip through the day and will periodically upgrade. So the question is, how do you know when she gets to the upgrade, and how will she know if she's taking too much or enough? Will her anxiety get much worse, or will new symptoms appear?
Well, it's very individual, Doug. So it's a matter of if the 1 drop does 1 drop is 2.5 milligrams, so it can do something. But as long as it does not cause the anxiety to worsen, then after 2 days you add another drop and go up like that. Now, the worsening of anxiety, that's not really what's happening. It is the magnesium starting to open up its 700, 800 different enzyme processes and revving things up and just kind of activating things. And that is interpreted by a hypervigilant body as the anxiety worsening. There are so many things that can create anxiety: low blood sugar, just apprehension, and then that becomes a learned behavior. And then when something new happens to the body, it's like, someone coming up behind you and yelling. And if you're already geared toward anxiety, you will shriek. When my magnesium was low, Bob would come by the kitchen window on his way back from the beach, and it would be partly dark, and he could scare me. And now he could come by, and it doesn't even bother me. So there's transitional time, transitional period of people taking the products, but it's incredibly individual. We just tell you to slowly build up and just know that the worst is over. If it seems like the worst is still here, you've got to put it into your intellect that this is just the body waking up, and listen to more of the radio shows where people talk about this.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, 602-666-6027 is the number to call if you want to talk to Dr. Dean tonight. *5 on your keypad. You've got to raise your hand. I see all these new callers, and I think they're calling to talk to you, Carolyn, but for some reason they're not raising their *5 hand, so I can't do anything about it. Okay, so we'll come back and check on the phones here in just a minute, and let's go on with some mailbag questions, Carolyn, ones that you have, and we'll see how things go.
Okay, then the next thing I have here is my blog for this week. It looks like I only did 1 blog. I send them to Chad, and then he peppers them through the chip body. And the topic was Beware the Chip Body. So what I married some of Bob's work with what's going on in the pharmaceutical industry. And you can find these blogs at drcarolyndean.com. They're my personal blogs. It's my soapbox. So I start by saying, I've been bemoaning the fate of our world in the hands of pharmaceutical drug pushers for decades, but my concerns have been ratcheted up a few more notches with the news that the FDA approves the first digital pill to track patients. The drugs are not new, but the embedded sensor made by a Japanese pharmaceutical company is making it possible to track a patient's drug intake and much more. Big Brother has landed on your doorstep. And what are you going to do about it? Probably nothing at all. We have become so docile and accepting of technology and drugs that marrying the two may seem the next logical step for our chip bodies. In order to deconstruct what's going on, I'll quote a media expert who helped me with Chapter 4 in Death by Modern Medicine. The chapter itself is called Death by Media. My husband, Bob, is a well-known media ecologist and expert on the work of media analyst Marshall McLuhan. Bob says we now have 4 bodies to contend with. Our post-human form consists of a TV body, a chip body, a chemical body, and an astral body. These 4 bodies constantly engage our post-human being and consciousness. Machines and satellites programmed whole environments in the industrial age, and then the TV age. And then with digitalization and miniaturization, people began to program themselves like machines, hence chipped drugs. People are compulsively exercising, medicating, dieting, piercing, having surgery to retrieve their lost chemical bodies. They're merging with the technology that caused them to disappear. Now, someone wrote and asked, what do I mean by disappearing? Well, we're kind of disappeared when we're just kind of reacting through our chip bodies. We're just messaging people. We're not there in person. McLuhan said something about we've disappeared being on the phone. Now, I'm not getting it totally right, and I don't know all that I want to know about this, but I'm starting to write about this because, I mean, it doesn't even make sense what's going on, the way our bodies are being programmed and everything, unless you imagine that we think of ourselves as partly a chip body. I go on. People are also using alternative medicine to program themselves with biohacking as part of their new physical image, a holdover from the resonance effect of the electronic age, but they're using alternatives in an allopathic way. As we've said before, they have no qualms about mixing modalities, no loyalties to any camp, any doctor, channel, or product. But why are people so loyal to their favorite sports team, one of the major benefactors of the TV medium and its instant replay technology? It's really their TV body. And why are they so addicted to their cell phones, making an average of 2,500 swipes a day? It's really their chip body. What will appeal to the millennial generation is the fact that they will be able to track their drug dosage on smartphones. Having grown up with 24/7 surveillance, they might not even mind their doctor and government knowing their vital statistics. But if there is electronic data, it can be hacked by anyone or used against them in some nefarious way. Bottom line, allopathic Big Brother is following chip drugs to make sure people are taking them. However, according to the above article, the pill has not yet been shown to actually improve patients' medication compliance. So how will doctors force compliance? What will be the punishment if patients don't comply? Arthur Kaplan, a medical ethicist at NYU, asks, is the doctor going to start yelling at me? Am I going to get a big accusatory speech? And then I say, or will the chip have an additional app that will shock a person when they're supposed to take their next pill and keep on shocking them until they do? Another doctor asks, could this type of a device be used for real-time surveillance? The answer is, of course, it could, he says. And what exactly is so cavalierly being injected into our bodies? What are the health effects of having sensors that are triggered by electromagnetics? Where do they end up? The possible pitfalls are staggering, but also staggering is the fact that we have no way of preventing this technology from being implemented. The FDA has already sanctioned it. The dialogue between your chemical body and chip body becomes more intimate and exploitable. And then I had a lot of response from that. People said, yeah, brave new world, so glad you alerted us. I'm already nervous about visiting any doctor, so we'll be even more vigilant. And then this woman says, your magnesium is brilliant. I've tried to spread the word, but most people smile politely and won't even read your free books. And I answered her, and I said, most people are already way too far down the rabbit hole. Someone else said, very scary. Another thing, if you stop taking meds, the doctor can and will drop you. Another person, boy, do I hear you. I'm concerned with all the sheeple who are blind to what's happening. We're being numbed and fed crap. Thank God for people like you. And another, it's quite complicated. I hope we will still be the owner of our bodies. And someone said, I'd like some elaboration on these concepts. So I directed the person to Death by Modern Medicine. And beware the chip body. Again, thank you for sharing this article, scary stuff, but your book, The Magnesium Miracle, rocks. Another person, wow, just wow. This is deep, and this is profoundly powerful. Just when I think it can't get much worse, it does. Just when I think it can't get any more complicated, convoluted, or surreal, it does. Thank you for your brilliant insights. So let's just go to something positive before I go back to you, Ginny. Thanksgiving Day testimonial. I wanted to send in a good news story. My stepmom, who's 77, started Remag 4 weeks ago and is just at 1 teaspoon a day. However, even at that low dose, the results have been remarkable. Her muscle weakness disappeared in 5 days, and she says she has muscle tone back. Her panic attacks are gone. Her racing heartbeat gone. She has stopped using her cane. I had suggested she try Remag and RNA drops. And RNA drops in her eyes as per your recommendations for her macular degeneration. No change in her eyes yet, but she's so optimistic now after the other changes she has had in such a short period of time. She's also going to add the Remite, and I suggested upping her Remag dose. I've been doing the whole program since March, although stopped the RNA drops due to the gluten. I've had many improvements, although for me it seems more gradual, and I'm still hopeful that my chronic muscle pain is going to vanish soon. I'm up to 3 to 4 teaspoons of Remag a day. So that was awesome. I mean, I have more testimonials, but I'm going to go to you, Ginny, and see what you have.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, let's take some phone calls. I'm glad that Karen is wanting to talk to you. She's area code 562. She sent in a question for tonight's show, so we're going to put her on the line. Karen, are you there?
I am.
Okay, go ahead,
Can you
please,
hear
love.
me? Well, actually, the questions I sent in, I have different questions, and I don't even remember what the ones were that I emailed you earlier. But I wanted to know, Dr. Dean, I finally got together the money to buy the whole kit, and so I've been doing that for about 3 days, so I'm really excited and looking forward to feeling better. I've been pretty darn good on my Candida food plan, only a little bit cheating on Thanksgiving Day. So the symptoms from the Meniere's are gone as long as I stay with the Candida protocol. I'm not having the Meniere's symptoms, so I'm thrilled.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, yep.
Karen, this is Carolyn. This is something I wanted Karen to share because, we have a lot of customers who call and ask about Meniere's. And Karen discovered that it was actually yeast overgrowth that had entrenched itself in her ears.
Yes.
Wow. Yes.
So what happened is I was having these horrible vertigo attacks that were sending me to urgent care. And one night at urgent care, the doctor said, "You've got these black spots in your ear. It looks like ashes after a fire." And a friend of mine who's kind of a healer said, "I think you've got Candida in your ear." And when the doctor said that, I asked him to culture those black spots. And he did, and it came back Candida.
Wow.
So then you and I were exchanging some emails, and I asked you, because somebody was saying, well, that can't be because the yeast can't cross the barrier into the inner ear. And you said to me, that's true, but the toxins can. And that was like a light bulb went on. And so I went immediately on the Candida protocol, and then I got cocky. And I started eating sugar. And about 5 days after I started eating sugar, I had horrific experience of having massive, debilitating vertigo attacks 3 days in a row. And the medication my doctor had given me was meclizine, and that always makes me feel horrible. But I'm telling you, it was like sticking my finger in a light socket, and I'm like, okay, I am not doing that again. I got it this time.
Yeah.
So,
you did, Karen,
so,
that's what I call the experiment. You did the final experiment.
Well, let's hope it's the final one, and when you're addicted to sugar, it's just, but I don't want to experience that again, and I don't think I'll ever forget it. It was just so horrible, and I live alone, and I don't have family, and so being by myself for 3 days in that condition was also frightening. So anyway,
Karen, let me ask, how old are you, just so we get a reference point?
65. I'll be 66 in January.
Right.
And I've probably had Candida my whole life.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Yeah, when I was a kid, all they did was prescribe me antibiotics. And then I got into college, and it was, I went in with a sore throat, and I got antibiotics. And at one point, I was on antibiotics for 2 months. And one day I went in, and there was an older doctor there, and she's like, oh, my God, this is an allergic throat. Get her off the antibiotics now. But they didn't tell me to do anything else. That was, many, many years ago, because I was in, early 20s then. But, and as I think I mentioned to you the last time I called in, I ended up in the early 90s. There was some diet that was real popular where all you did was eat fruit until noon. And then I ended up crashing with, and then being diagnosed a whole year of being really, really sick with horrible intestinal problems. And I kept thinking I was getting the flu over and over. And then in December of that year, which was 1993, I was diagnosed by, thank God, I had a doctor who was originally from France, not an American-trained doctor. And he said, I think you've got Epstein-Barr. He did the blood work, and sure enough, that was it. And then, he didn't really have anything for me. And I tried some holistic doctors, and they didn't either. And so it's been 24 years now. And it took me a long time to figure out that probably I brought my immune system down by eating nothing but fruit after having all those courses of antibiotics. And that's what gave the Epstein-Barr the opportunity to flourish. But my question that I have right now is, so I'm doing the Candida diet. I am being pretty darn faithful to it, and I'm back on my 2 teaspoons a day of Remag and 1.5 teaspoons of the Remide. I'm doing the Realign 2 drops under my tongue. I'm doing the 2 scoops of the Restructure a day in water. I am using unsweetened cranberry juice, like 4 ounces in 40 ounces of water. And I wanted to know, is that okay? The cranberry juice, it's unsweetened. Is that okay?
Let me look it up for carbs. Let's see what they say.
I may be doing 8 ounces total of cranberry juice a day.
1 cup has 31 grams of carbohydrates. That's a lot of carbs.
So no cranberry juice.
No, that could throw you right off.
Okay, so I will immediately stop that. So then I wanted to know, because I'm suffering like tremendous fatigue still and really bad fibromyalgia pain, and I will stay on the Candida plan. But I thought I heard you mention earlier, I was doing some other things earlier in the show. Did you say for viruses to increase REMAG? I'm looking for something to help fight this virus because I'm desperate.
Right. Well, we do recommend silver for infections, the sovereign silver. You can get it on VitaCost. So it's really not so much a colloidal silver. It is like an angstrom silver. It has some of the technology of the picometer, but it's not. So that's why I consider it safe, whereas the colloidal silvers, I don't know. That's the only one I recommend is a sovereign silver until we get our own silver. Natural Immunogenics. But that's for the infection. But if you still have fibromyalgia and fatigue, then you're not on enough magnesium. What you would do is, I'm sorry to give you another product, but the REMAG lotion, you can start putting a couple of teaspoons on your body on all the fibromyalgia sites and really drive that into your muscles so that you can break up the crystals and calcification that are causing the pain.
The worst thing is that it's in my back where I can't reach. So that's the hard part. But if I take more REMAG internally, will that help?
It will help. I just don't want you with your kind of gut candida sensitivity to get the laxative effect with REMAG. Now, where in your back? You mean it's in your thoracic spine?
It's all up and down my spine. And some of the muscles I can reach, and some of them I can't. It's just I feel like somebody's holding a blowtorch to me. And sometimes I'm having really severe muscle fatigue, and I haven't done anything. I go downstairs to take out the trash, and I can barely make it up my stairs. Yeah.
Well, that's all magnesium. So, you definitely need more. And, rub it in wherever you can. It'll kind of travel around, and it'll do the job. That's my bottom line with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue is that it's mineral deficiencies and yeast overgrowth. So that's all you have to know.
How much REMAG do you think I should be on?
Well, if you could go up to 4 teaspoons, like if you take the 2.5 of the REMAG liquid and then 2 or so teaspoons of the REMAG lotion. Each teaspoon of REMAG lotion has 200 milligrams of REMAG.
Okay. And should I also increase the Remite too?
Yes, when you get up to about 4 teaspoons of REMAG, then you go up to 2 teaspoons of Remite, because what happens with the other minerals besides the REMAG, you're low on all the thyroid minerals. So that's where the thyroid, it gets blocked by yeast toxins. It doesn't have enough minerals to make thyroid hormones. So that's where part of the fatigue of chronic fatigue comes in. So with the protocol, I've put in all that I've learned over, the decades about these conditions, where you have to simultaneously be supporting your magnesium, the minerals for your thyroid and adrenals, and your immune system to deal with the yeast overgrowth.
Okay. And then there's a little capsule. I forget what that one's called, the little bottle of
Realign. Realign is it's got the methylated B vitamins, because people with all these issues tend not to methylate their Bs or methylate processes in the body properly. So the methyl groups are really important, and it has the precursors to amino acid to glutathione to help with gentle detox.
Okay. And should I increase that? Because I'm doing 2 a day like it says on the bottle.
2 a day is probably just fine, because you'll notice that your urine turns a bit orangey or yellow-orange, and that means you're saturating and then you're urinating out excess.
Okay. Now, 2 more questions, and I'm hoping they're quick. One of my doctors, when she does blood work on me, she's also asking them to test for boron. And the last 3 times I've tested that I have 0 boron in me. And I was wondering what do we need boron for?
Oh, do you have my Remite book? Remite Recalcia book? I have it in there. But boron is in Remite.
Okay.
Boron, I think it's one of the thyroid minerals. I'm just looking it up myself now. It's one of the thyroid minerals. And what else? It's concentrated in bones, thyroid, and spleen, your immune system. And it's important for bone health, investigated in the treatment of heart, cholesterol, arthritis. I mean, it's just another one of these ubiquitous minerals that's needed for everything and should be taken in combination with all the other minerals.
Okay. And I'll stop with one last question. The scoop that comes in the restructure powder, it has a line on it. So when I take a scoop, do I fill the scoop to the top or just to that line? What constitutes a scoop?
Jenny, is that true that it's to the line?
No, it's the whole scoop. The line's just a manufacturing flaw. It's the whole scoop is 27 is the serving size.
Okay, good. I wanted to know about that. Well, I know I had other questions in my email, but you can answer them via email if you want. And thank you very much, Dr. Dean. I appreciate your time and want to give other people a chance to talk too.
Oh, well, no, Karen, you've asked some very vital questions that are important for everybody. And when I answer questions, I usually try to, make it a general answer so that other people can benefit. But you've asked some great questions, so never be afraid of phoning in and continuing the dialogue, okay?
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, and I'll keep you guys posted.
Okay, great. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, Karen, so glad you called in. It's just good to have that interaction with Dr. Dean. 602-666-6027 is the phone number to call if you have, if you want to talk to Dr. Dean tonight. If you've called and you're holding on the line, you've got to hit *5. *5 will raise your hand in the studio and let us know you have a question or comment, and then we'll put you on the phone with her. And I see some people who typed in already, even on the chat line, and I wonder if you want to talk to Dr. Dean, but you've got to hit *5. Okay. I'm just going to start taking people off of mute and demanding that they talk to you.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I'm just like,
okay,
I know
so
will
I continue then with the mailbag?
Yes,
okay,
please. Yep.
Here's a very nice testimonial. And when I say that it's the heading I have is AFib testimonial. Now, I'm not saying magnesium is treating AFib. I'm saying that the people that come to us have a magnesium deficiency that's in a lot of cases been misdiagnosed. And here's how it can happen. This person says, now, is this a male or a female? We might find out. I have
it's a man.
AFib.
It's a man.
It's a man. I've had AFib for the past 7 years, ever since I had a simple operation for hernia repair. Yeah, that would be a man. And developed an infection of some kind, and they said it was ulcerative colitis. So there he is in hospital for simple operation, because hernia repairs are done, constantly in the hospitals. developed an infection, probably in hospital. They said he had ulcerative colitis. I was in hospital for 29 days and had diarrhea for 45 days. They put me on a medication called Pentasa. Pentasa, that's one of those a salicylate, control-release, aminosalicylate anti-inflammatory agent. Salicylate's an aspirin type. I had to take it. The doctor said I had to take it for the rest of my life, and they told me when they discharged me from the hospital, I could have the diarrhea for another year. In the meantime, I was told by a nurse in the hospital to get a second opinion and go to a naturopathic doctor. I did, and she put me on acidophilus, and within a few days, the diarrhea stopped. Thinking back, that must have been the start of my magnesium deficiency. I remember the naturopath telling me that I should be taking magnesium, but I was so scared of diarrhea that I thought it would start again. And that's where people are afraid of magnesium because they hear it's mainly a laxative, unlike Remag, which is not. In any case, I started going into AFib, and every year it was getting worse, sometimes 3 times a week. I didn't know what to do with myself. The doctor put me on metoprolol. It's a beta blocker, 25 milligrams 3 times a day. Nothing worked for me until I read on Amazon about a book called The Magnesium Miracle. The book is so interesting, I couldn't put it down. The more I read, the more I realized all my trouble was low magnesium. So I purchased an 8-ounce bottle of Remag. I still can't believe the difference it made in my life. This past week, I ordered a bottle of Remite for myself and Remag lotion for my wife. Can I take the Remag and Remite together for my AFib? Absolutely. I think what we did was I had Melody Rose send him the AFib book, because we talk about the whole total body reset protocol as being a good way to work with AFib. Again, I thank you from the bottom of our hearts, especially mine, since it was working so much better. I'm spreading the good news to everyone. And that, he's to everyone, because they tell me I'm looking so good. So that's pretty awesome. We are treating magnesium deficiency, folks. If anybody from the FDA is listening in, we're not treating disease. We're treating magnesium deficiency. And I'll testify
Very good.
that. Yeah. Another, I have a question regarding my deficiency. Good question. I probably have had this most of my life, but more recently, as I'm one of those patients whose doctor had me take 5,000 IUs of vitamin D every day. I just started on my second bottle of Remag. I've noticed a difference, but after starting, I had the quote, "When magnesium makes you worse," unquote, symptoms. I was only sleeping 3 to 4 hours per night for many, many months, causing its own problems. I also just started reading your book, and I'm so excited to learn all this information. A week ago, I stopped my D completely, just a week ago. So, darn. And I actually started sleeping 6 hours. Oh, my gosh. So it was the vitamin D that kept chewing up his magnesium and not allowing the magnesium to help the sleep, I guess. Also, the palpitations have slowed. My question is, how long should I wait before taking D again? I bought the liquid D and K2, plan on taking 2,000 units when I start back up. I want to become more saturated with magnesium first. I think I probably wrote him and said, we recommend the Blue Ice Royal, the fermented cod liver oil and butter oil that gives you food-based A, D, and K2 in the proper ratios. FYI, I had a real bad year with the blood pressure medicine, losartan. It damaged my kidneys. It messed up my lymphatic system and my gut big time. I was sick for a whole year and didn't know it was the BP mid. You can imagine how happy I am to have found you and how to correct my problems. My doctor is good and uses natural means, but for some reason is going big on drugs and pushing them. He didn't want me to stop the vitamin D. And that's a doctor who's stuck in the system, I'm afraid. Oh, it is a woman. No, this one is a woman, yeah. The doctors are stuck in a system where they have to toe the line. If they are caught prescribing enough drugs, not prescribing enough tests, they are chastised or worse. Facebook testimonial. James Donald, he gives his name and all, so it's safe for me to say it. I've suffered from AFib for 10 years. I've had a catheter ablations 5 years ago that failed. I spent 5 nights in cardiac ward as a result. I had 6 different medications, 4 cardiologists, all failed. I had AFib almost every day. I started Remag May 2017, and AFib now gone. I'm also on the Himalayan salt mixed with the Remag, about to start on Remite to try. I'm absolutely thrilled with the results. And he gives a second testimonial, gives more history, and it is instructive. He says, I've been on the Remite for about a month as well as the marvelous Remag. Not sure if it's helping, but the Remag certainly does. I still get occasional AFib for, I still got occasional AFib for about 4 months, but only at 104 to 110 beats per minute. They only lasted short times, not the 2 to 3 days as before. And I could stop it by holding my nose and blowing hard for 10 to 15 seconds, as medical people have told me to do for years, but it never helped once in the past. In the last 2 months, I haven't had one bit of AFib. I'm now on 1/2 teaspoon of Remag a day. That can't be right. And 1/2 to 3/4 of Remite. I'm going to stop slowly my Sotalol medication soon, much to my GP's opinion, but it was absolutely no good before. I'm only writing all this as I'm so thrilled to be free of this rotten AFib. I first started taking beta blockers in 1986 and did not get AFib for 24 years, but once it started again in 2007, it just got worse and worse. The Wonder Mineral, many, many thanks, Dr. Dean. And he said, I put up with many side effects from the drugs, blurred vision, shaky legs, chest pain, constipation, and more. Noticed side effects from Remag. Jenny, is there any way we can find out if James is only on 1/2 teaspoon of Remag a day?
Yeah, I'm right ahead of you. I am writing him right now.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, it's amazing if 150 milligrams has done that, and he's doing the sea salt, and he's starting the Remite, but I know, that's pretty awesome. And we'd probably tell him, take a little more, but it's up to him.
Okay, now let's see if we can put you on the phone with somebody who I know wants to talk to you. Area code 617. Are you there, Rona?
Yeah, I'm
Hello?
ahead of you. I am writing him right now.
Rona, yeah, go ahead and turn down your radio.
Oh, my gosh. I mean,
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
There you are.
Oh,
yes,
I'm sorry.
Roma, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hi, Dr. Dean. I just wanted to follow up with you. I spoke to you back in September. I'm not sure if you remember. We had a very lengthy conversation. I had spoken to you right after I got out of the hospital, and I was in very critical condition. I'm a kidney patient, and I was in severe metabolic acidosis. My bicarb went down to 5, and we spoke. I talked to you about how I had been trying to use the Remag, but my serum magnesium kept going very high. It actually went up at one point to 4.8, and currently I am taking 2 teaspoons a day, along with using your Remag lotion.
Wow.
Yeah, so my serum magnesium is still high. It's the last blood test showed 3.7, but I'm not as concerned about 3.7 compared to 4.8. So I'll accept the 3.7. I'm just a little reluctant to exceeding the 2 teaspoons a day of the Remag. So I'm taking the 2 teaspoons, plus I'm using your lotion. I'm using your Remite. I do 1.5 teaspoons of that. And I use the RNA drops in the Realign. I'm using everything, actually. And I have to say, since my hospitalization, my labs are not really improving, although I feel so much stronger, which is very encouraging. I'm hoping eventually those labs will start to budge. But I just want to follow up with you regarding my message. I think it was a little confusing. So initially when I started your Remag back in the end of June, I had an immediate response with actually a lower dosage. I think like after a half a teaspoon, I actually came off of my hypertensive medication, antihypertensive medication, and I stayed off until, I'd say, October. Now, all of a sudden, my blood pressure is creeping up again, and I've had to start back on a low dosage of my lisinopril, which I'm not very happy about. And just looking at the whole picture, I do use all of your products, and like I said, I'm feeling so much stronger, which I think is good. I just don't quite understand why now my body is starting to change in terms of the regulation of my blood pressure.
Well, what is the blood pressure reading, Roma?
It's actually Rona, and the average is actually about 140 over 85.
And how old are you?
I'm 53.
And what does your doctor want it to be?
Well, at this point, I think when I go to the doctor, he knows I do my own thing anyways, because on the whole, I'm very much against pharmaceutical drugs, and ideally, I told him that I would like it to be no higher than, high 120s over 80, because I do also have severe renal artery stenosis, and
right. And
so when you have, I'm sorry. I figure when you have some calcification.
Yeah, when you have calcification, it's
in case you have it probably in other parts besides the renal artery. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah, and we only have a couple of minutes, so just let me have a few words.
Absolutely, sure.
The thing about the blood pressure is as we get older. Now, 53 is not old, but if you're calcified, if you've gone through so much with your kidneys already, you can't afford to have too low a blood pressure. If the 85 is the kind of relaxation phase of your heart, if the 85 was 90, 95, 100, that's a blood pressure. But if it stays at 80, 85, that's perfectly normal. And a 140 may be necessary periodically to push through tight arteries. It may be that you don't have enough magnesium, but I hear what you're saying. The serum magnesium looks high, and I don't know if you were listening earlier because we started off about kidney disease. So I want Ginny to send you the excerpt from my Magnesium Miracle book where I talk about the study where they did the blood tests on kidney patients whose serum was high, but their ionized magnesium was too low. and it meant that the magnesium wasn't getting into the cells enough. And I don't want you to, be uncomfortable with what you're taking, but it explains to me why doctors are afraid of magnesium because of the serum, and they don't have the ionized magnesium test to prove that the person really does need more magnesium in their cells. I know it puts you in a bind, but taking a blood pressure medication is going to drain your magnesium even more.
Right. So in terms of, I understand, the best indicator of your true magnesium is your serum, the red blood cell magnesium. But so what would you say, because I get concerned when the serum magnesium is creeping up already past 3.7, what would be the upper limit that you would say, okay, you know what, let's keep it at this dosage and not go any higher?
I have no idea. I have never seen serum magnesium behave in any way that was definable or, something to be followed. I know people, like in my Magnesium Miracle book, I talk about Dana's story. He's very magnesium deficient. He had to live on IV magnesium in an indwelling catheter. And when he came off it because he was getting infections in his catheters, he just took Remag, and his serum magnesium went to normal. His RBC went to normal. So if you can get an RBC test to check yourself out, that might be helpful to understand what's going on. But I can't say anything more than give you the information, and then you have to decide with your doctors what to do.
If the magnesium red blood cell is within the normal range, and I do understand you like it closer to between 6 and 6.5, and the serum magnesium is still high, could we say, well, don't worry about the serum?
I am not going to say those words to you. It's not my job. I cannot treat you like a patient. But if you do both tests at the same time, then you have to decide. Email me when you get your results, okay, Rhoda?
Okay. Thank you so much, and thank you for all of your exceptional knowledge and expertise. I truly appreciate it. God bless you.
God bless, Rhoda. Thank you. Thank you, Ginny. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Ginny. Thank you.
Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/AchieveRadio.